G'day all you true Eagles, we are back today for another video. I thought I would do something inspired by a comment from one of you, Big Cat in Bangkok, shout out. He's asked me to revisit a format that I've actually done on the channel before, where I take a look at what our team looks like 3 years from now. So what I've chosen to do is round 1, 2028, so about 2.5 years away from where we are now currently. Obviously, we can't forecast the players we recruit, so you can probably eliminate some players you definitely don't think will be there. But I've mapped out our best 24. I've given us a 6-man bench, sort of a look at who's likely to still be there. Perhaps just as importantly, who is likely to not be there. And I've also gone ahead and had a look at how old and how experienced they're going to be 3 years from now. How good will this team be in 3 years? Well, we can't really forecast that simply from this video. I'm only going to be looking at the players we currently have on our list. So pleasingly, I suppose, we could potentially have pick 1 and 2 this year, plus Hawthorn's first rounder to potentially add to and bolster this team. One pleasing thing I'll say though, before I get into it, the actual team, was that there's a good chunk of the team that's in the team currently now that could still be there in 3 years, or in fact, I expect them to be part of this team in 3 years because they've shown something, shown some talent. Perhaps when I've done this video for West Coast in previous years, it's been a lot of players we're not sure are going to make the grade, but now perhaps it's a testament to the fact that we seem to be going all right currently as it currently stands, and we're seeing young players play their best football at AFL level to date, and we are a very young team at the moment, so maybe there won't be too much disruption to this team in 3 years, but who knows, we could have made some monster trades. We could have Chad Warner by 2028, who knows? So to start off this video, I am going to start with the players that we can probably definitely eliminate, players that are currently on our list that won't be there. So we know about McGovern. You can pretty much guarantee Jamie Cripps won't be there, I wouldn't have thought. Elliot Yeo will have had his contract expire. He's signed a 3-year deal last year, which means the end of 2027 is likely to be the last we see of Elliot Yeo. Tim Kelly, Jaden Hunt, and Dom Sheed are other ones we can pretty much guarantee won't be available. Then we've got some players that could potentially be at the back end of their career where I can't categorically rule them out. There is some doubt as to whether they'll still be around in 3 years, whether by their choice or because they will have been phased out. So Oscar Allen I've left out of this analysis. There is a chance, obviously, he stays, and if he does stay, he's going to be in the team in 3 years, I would have thought, but I think it's more likely than not Oscar Allen joins the Brisbane Lions personally. So I've left him out of this analysis, and perhaps it's better if we err on the side of looking at the young team. Liam Duggan will be 32. There is every chance he's in the 22 by then, but he's in some horrible form at the moment, and I think by 32, I erred on the side of leaving him out. Same thing with Matt Owies, who will be 31. Tom Cole will be 31. I mean, Tom Cole's not a walk-up start to this team as it currently stands, and I do think there are some better options, even if I think it's possible that he's still in the team. Liam Ryan, I have left in. Liam Ryan hasn't really gotten close to being dropped. I still think he's playing some decent footy, admittedly not his All-Australian best, but at 31, I decided to keep him in the team. And Jack Graham's in if you want as well. He'll be 30 by round 1, 2028. It's possible he gets phased out, but at the moment he's a pretty established best 22 player. So let's get into how I see this team shaping up. Now, in green, I've highlighted players that I really do expect to be there. Maybe it's too strong to say lock in, but I'm pretty confident we'll be there in 3 years. And the guys in white, obviously, in my opinion, they're in the team in 3 years, but there is some level of doubt. So we'll go through the teams line by line, starting with the back line, the midfield, then finally the forward line. And you can see a 6-man bench there, so I can flesh out some of the options that we've got. And there were some players that was tough to leave out of this, to be honest. So with our back 6, it does really resemble like what we've got at the moment. You've got Liam Baker, who I imagine should still be around at 30, Harry Edwards, Jinby, Tom McCarthy, who already looks like a lock for this team in 3 years, Sandy Brock in yellow, and then Ryan Marrick. Now, I do expect, 5 out of those 6 players are more likely to be in the team than not. In fact, I'm pretty damn confident. Sandy Brock looks like a player, but he's only played like 9 games, and I think comparatively on Harry Edwards, well, I don't think he's as safe, but there is also Rhett Bazzo. As I currently record this, there's a chance Rhett Bazzo comes into the team this week, so there is some doubt about that. I see a fairly settled backline for us, at least in terms of what we've got there. So we'll move down to the midfield there. Hutchinson and Bo Allen on our wings. There's obviously some doubt as to really what positions either of those guys play. Hutchinson just signed a 5-year deal, which is a bit of an eyebrow raiser. Even if I do rate him, that's an enormous show of confidence in Jack Hutchinson and his future. There is some doubt as to what position he plays, though. I mean, we drafted him as a high-flying forward, and he is adapting to a wing role now. So I've got him in the team, albeit Not really sure. And Bo Allen, of course, as well. I mean, there's some doubt where he ends up. He was playing a little bit of midfield at the Waffle, forecasted as a midfielder potentially long-term. Is he a running defender? That's where he's been playing at AFL level to this point. I think he'd make a great wingman, so he makes this team on a wing for me. And Brady Hough just played his best game as a midfielder, so let's put him as a midfielder for the time being. Of course, that could change. The ruck was interesting. I think if we go with number one ruckman, Matthew Flynn is currently the preferred option. And I don't really know if I see that changing in 3 years. I actually think Bailey Williams is probably more competing with Archer Reed for a spot in this team. So I've gone with Matt Flynn for the time being. There are two ways Matt Flynn could find his way out of the team, aside from Bailey Williams suddenly becoming a number one ruck, which I don't think is realistic. We either trade for a better one, or we draft one and he's a gun in 3 years and is better than Matt Flynn. I don't know if that's really likely. So I actually think Matthew Flynn's fairly safe, although he is not so good that I'm willing to lock into green, if that makes sense. So I expect there's probably not going to be much movement from that point of view. If we take pick one and we draft Cooper Duff Tyler, he's only going to be 21, so that doesn't really make sense. And then the on-boards, you've got Elijah Hewitt and Harley Reid. I don't need to sell you on those guys, I would have thought. The forward line, I think we have a very talented player in Tyrell Dewar. I've been a fan of his for a while. I've got Job Shanahan in this team as a key forward. Not willing to lock it in green. I think he's a gun, but he's played one game, so I was trying to balance that a little bit. Tyler Brockman on the other forward flank, established best 22 player now. I don't have a strong opinion that someone like a Noah Long or a Jacob Newton is going to be better in 3 years from now. Tyler Brockman is a capable AFL forward at the moment, so he gets the nod for me, but I don't think he's absolutely locked in, especially when you consider some of the next generation academy talents we've got coming through the ranks. We've got a lot of small forwards on the horizon for us, so he's not locked into green, but I think he's doing enough to take his spot in this team for the time being. Liam Ryan, I think, is a fairly safe bet, to be honest with you. Jake Waterman is a lock for this team at 29 years of age. And Jack Williams, again, it's probably... Well, I mean, there's Bailey Williams and there's Archer Reid to consider, and I think by then, Jack Williams, well, I think he's probably the best forward out of that lot, whereas maybe Archer's more a second ruck forward, whereas I think Jack could actually be a goal-kicking forward to a greater extent than Archer at this current point in time. I run through the bench. I have got Archer Reid taking a spot over Bailey Williams, who will be 28. There is some doubt about that, but I do think Archer has the higher ceiling, and by then, I reckon West Coast will favour the more talented Archer Reid, in my opinion. Tom Gross will likely be in this team, I think, but only played 6 games. Clay Hall's just played his 8th game. He makes his team as a reserve midfielder. Still a fan of Harvey Johnston, even though he hasn't really broken his way into the team this year. In fact, not at all. And Noah Long and Jack Graham make up the extended bench there. So I do feel like the talent probably drops off a little bit, or at least of the players that we're confident about in the future. So part of this exercise is to look at what our gaps are and where we need to focus our attention in terms of recruiting. Before we go there, I just want to point out a few players I left out. Campbell Chesser, unlikely to get another contract in my opinion, so he didn't make this team. Who knows about Harry Barnett? It feels like he's a long way off as it currently stands. Luca Gregor we just haven't seen. Same thing with Jacob Newton. And Hamish Davis could be in this team, absolutely, but he didn't make my 24 as it currently stands. I'd like to think he's still in the mix 3 years from now. Then there's some academy players we know we're likely to get. So there's Wes Wally in this year's draft. There's Charlie Banfield, Kobe Evans, and Garrison Ken, I think, is the following year, as is Lockie McGlade. They're a little bit far out to include in this, although it sounds like Garrison Ken and Lockie McGlade in 2026 look like really strong talents. Look, I'm just going to throw up a graphic here. I decided that it would be prettier if I chose the grassy background graphic, but this is the graphic that I made in Microsoft Excel. I'll flash it up here. If you want to pause it, what I've done is just looked at their age, what they're going to be by round 1 of 2028, and I've also forecasted roughly how many games experience. I think that could be helpful. You can see that this team will be a fair bit more mature, you'd hope, in 3 years, and some players really approaching their prime. I'm fairly optimistic about the balance this team has as it currently stands. Obviously, it needs to be added to, and like I said, we have a pretty strong position in this year's draft. We're going to have potentially 3 first rounders, and 2 of those might be the first 2 picks as it currently stands. So ignoring the talent pool right now, I think that's its own video. Looking at who we should take with 1 and 2, I'll work on that soon. But generally speaking, what does this team need? Well, a high potential key position defender. I've liked what Harry Edwards is doing at AFL level now. But, I wouldn't say he's necessarily high potential. I'm more comfortable that he's going to be AFL standard. I think he already is AFL standard, to be fair. So either way, you'd like to partner him up with a real talented type. So that's always going to be on the agenda for us, particularly now with McGovern retiring. We definitely need a high potential ruck, whether that's pick 1, Cooper Duff-Tyler this year. I think there's arguments for and against going a 18-year-old ruckman with pick 1. Or, best case scenario, Matthew Flynn surprisingly becomes a gun. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time a ruckman has done that. And he's showing some signs, albeit not quite at the level just yet. So we got a ruckman, we got a key defender. I still think that midfield needs work. We're pretty comfortable with Harley and Elijah, you would have thought. Clay Hall could be a good inside extractor type. Tom Gross has a bit of talent as well, no doubt. But we do need to add to that. Stylistically, what attributes do they need to have? Well, we've got the explosive impact type midfielders, which are arguably the harder ones to get. We actually need some midfielders who can run and carry, accumulate the footy, and use the ball well. So someone who's going to get 25 positives a game regularly and use the ball well. That would offset the attributes we currently have in this team, which is a little bit more crash and bash, a little bit more high upside, but we need the bread and butter suddenly. Whether that be, an outside leaning midfielder, we've got Hoff, who is now an outside leaning midfielder, maybe someone else like that. Those wing positions are certainly not locked in. It does seem like a diminishing role in the AFL to have a really high impact wingman. I mean, you've got those outside types like Goulden, Josh Dacos when he has played on the wing, but generally across the board, it's not as big a prominent a role as it used to be, but you'd still like to have a high impact wingman. Could Bo Allen be that? Could Tyrell Dewar be that? I chucked him on a half forward flank in this team. Perhaps that's the answer to that solution. It'd be nice to have one of those high half forwards that pushes up the ground and wins the footy as well. We do have a stack of half forwards in this team, but none of them really push up and use the ball well inside 50 and get the ball more than 15 to 20 times a game. Someone like a Dylan Moore is a sort of player we don't have. I mean, most teams don't. He's an outstanding player. But I mean, stylistically, that kind of high half forward accumulating who pushes up the ground, gets to contests and transitions us from the midfield to the forward half. That is absolutely something that would be on our shopping list. I also think we could use some clearance winning depth, right? So Hewitt and Harley are great, clearance winners. The numbers suggest that I think Harley would probably be our number 1 clearance winner this year. But it would be nice to have some support for those guys. So is that Clay Hall? Could he become that inside prominent first possession midfielder? Could that be Tom Gross? Absolutely. But perhaps some clearance winning depth. At the moment, it feels like when Hall and Gross go into the AFL side, well, you look at the Waffle team and there's no one winning the inside footy in that team. So absolutely some depth there. Someone like a Dyson Sharp as an aside probably fits the bill for what we're looking for to reinforce this AFL midfield. So you might say that we're, not a very good team at the moment, and therefore it's a blank canvas. We need all kinds of players. I don't think that's literally true in this case. We have been rebuilding for about 4 years now. We've plugged some gaps. So to be specific, I don't think we need to draft a key forward early anytime soon, maybe with a roll of the dice rookie selection or something like that. For example, Joe Shanahan probably was too good to pass up at pick 30. Those kind of selections are fine, but it's certainly not top of the shopping list for us. I would also throw a small forward into that mix. Maybe we don't have, an elite small forward like Hosey Pickett, absolutely. But considering on the horizon with our next generation academy, we do have a number of small forward options. We've got Wes Wally, who's small to medium, to be fair, in this year's draft. There is Tyler Williams as well. I don't know if he'll be drafted, but he exists. There's Lockie McGlade, and I think there's more in 2026 onwards. I guess what I'm saying is if we've got an NGA spitting out some half-decent small forward talents, with the other picks that we do get and the list spots that are quite valuable to us, maybe we don't allocate resources into forwards, particularly talls or smalls. We could probably use a gun medium forward type that could run through the midfield. Like, you wouldn't say no to a Toby Green type, right? Obviously. We're also probably okay for running half-back distributors suddenly, now that Marrick's gone back there and looked okay, and now we've drafted Tom McCarthy, Bo Allen likely to become that. Ruben Ginby's a versatile defender, absolutely, but he can be that run and carry player too. So that's not really top of the shopping list, particularly with one of our early picks. So again, I said I wouldn't reference this year's draft. There is a Josh Lindsay in this year's crop, and maybe he is probably too good to pass up at pick 2. It's still too early to say that, but I'd really be looking for that type of prospect who isn't just a halfback flanker. Maybe he's a wingman as well. Maybe he's an outside midfielder. That would be ideal. But anyway, guys, I thought that would be a worthwhile exercise. Thank you again to Big Cat in Bangkok for prompting me to make this video. Let me know in the comments what you agree with and disagree with. Like I said, I'm starting to feel a little bit more confident about a large portion of this team still being around in 3 years. And who knows, when you look at the age and experience profile of this team, there's no reason we shouldn't start to realistically move up into at least the middle part of the ladder within 3 years. Doesn't mean finals in 3 years, but certainly take a couple of jumps between now and then. Like I said, we're in a handy position of having that team looking a little bit more settled than it has done in previous versions of this video that I've done. But we've also got pick 1, pick 2, and a first rounder from Hawthorn to add to that. And I'd imagine we're going to be chasing Chad Warner as a free agent. But let me know in the comments what you think, guys. Up the Eagles. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.